and welcome to Empowered Training and Consultation. I'm Dr. Shern, and today, what I'm going to be sharing with you is 5 tips, 5 steps that you can take to reduce unnecessary confrontation. Okay. Now, to be sure, some confrontations are necessary, some confrontations are unavoidable, but we're talking about unnecessary confrontations, and I'm going to give you the 5 steps that you can follow and employ to help with the reduction of that. So the first step is before reacting to what is said or done or combination of the both of the two, think about if a response is absolutely necessary. Does this situation require a response from me? Okay. Many times what we do is we get involved in things or we have emotional charges or connections to something, and so we react without thinking. But if you stop and think, does this actually require a response from me? You are short circuiting, you're putting a stop, a break, emergency on that reactionary behavior. And you're giving yourself an opportunity to actually explore whether or not what was done or what was said or what was said and done requires something from you. Okay. That takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of awareness. This really kind of dovetails into motivating your behavior. What motivates your behavior? So if you haven't watched those videos, go ahead and watch them. It's a 2-part series, really quick. Won't take much of your time, but it'll give you some ideas of things that might, you know, questions that you might be able to ask yourself. But in this case, we're talking about confrontations, conflict. And so you think about what if there is an actual response necessary from you, right? Number two, step two, think about if your response to this situation is appropriate. All right. So now you've thought about if you actually have to respond. Now, if you say, okay, yes, I need to respond to this, think about if your response to the situation is going to be appropriate. Now, some a way of thinking about this really is understanding that. So let me give you a scenario. Okay, you've been having a stressful work day, right? From traffic, getting to work, conflict inside of the workplace, boss getting on your nerve, customers, whatever, and then you get traffic coming home and living in what we call the beltway. And now I stay outside of the beltway, but if I go into Montgomery County, if I go into Washington D.C., when I was doing that, those were factors that played a part into my overall mood, right? So if a response to a situation is necessary, am I responding directly to the situation and not responding from all of the stuff that happened in my day prior to this situation, right? So spouse, significant other, um, brother, sister, cousin, friend, child, whatever, could do something that would generate a response that necessitates a response. But are you responding to them based off of all of the frustration that you had throughout the day? Or are you just responding to the situation in and of itself? If you take inventory, it's likely, the likelihood is that the situation itself will require a lesser response in that sense, if that makes sense. All right. Number three, what will happen if you do not respond to the person, event, etc.? So, what will happen if you do not respond? So now you've questioned whether or not a response is necessary. You're thinking about if your response to the situation is appropriate, but now you're also thinking, okay, if I choose not to respond, what will happen? What could happen? Okay. Again, you're thinking, your forethought, you're saying, okay, you're trying to you're trying the goal is to get you to think about what would be the end result, what would be the outcome. Okay. Now, number four, what is the potential consequence for my response? Many times, this one is important to me because a lot of the time when we react without thinking, we also don't think about the consequence. Okay. So you get frustrated, you punch a hole in the wall. All right. You get frustrated, you say some things that in actuality you really don't mean, but it no filter. What is the potential consequence? Have you damaged? Now I know you've damaged your house, or whoever, if you happen to be renting, you staying on base or whatever, you damage the structure of the house. You damage relationships by saying things knee jerk, right? So getting you to think about the potential consequences for your response. What might that be? The fifth one, the fifth one, this is kind of an extension of number four. But now you say, how does my actions now affect my future? How does my actions now affect my future? Okay, so let's take this to its logical conclusion. I punch holes in a wall. All right. In the future, I have to address that. That means that it's going to cost me some money, some time, materials, or whatever. Okay. And if you are renting and you have a security deposit, when you move out, you got to have the house back into the shape that it was when you moved in. Otherwise, there goes your security deposit, or however much it's going to your security deposit minus however much it's going to cost you to, you know, the landlord or the owner or whatever to fix that space. But what it also does is now, when it comes time to rent, if you are renting in the future, and they need prior rental histories, and they reach out to the the landlord is on, well, this person left my house in shambles. Okay, that's when you damage physical structures. But now, let's say you explode on your kids. In the future, they might not respond now, but in the future, the relationships are frayed. You explode on your spouse, your partner, your wife, your husband, significant other, whoever. Relationships frayed, not trusting you. Not the environment now is kind of chaotic. It's kind of toxic. It's tense, right? The kind of walking on eggshell type thing. These are some of the outcomes that that affect your future, right? Oh, if you marry and that's the last straw for your spouse, now you get divorced. And you know divorce is not a I'm not saying divorce is good or bad, it just is. But when you think about the emotional toll and the financial toll, okay, if that could have been avoided, right? So we want to reduce unnecessary conflict and unnecessary confrontations. And this extends even to people, strangers, and whatever, because people tend to be more open to confrontation, unnecessarily so, when it's a stranger and they don't think that they're going to run into that person again. But you never know. The world is smaller than we believe, than we think, right? And so, what they call is 6 degrees of separation. Um, so you never know. So now you are cautious and you're mindful in how you engage with people, because you just never know, right? If you think that the person doesn't mean anything to you and has no ability to affect you, then you unleash on them, not knowing that they know who you are and they know what you do, and they know people that can make or break, your career, your whatever. Okay, so those are the 5 steps. Let me recap them really quick. Before reacting, you want to think, okay, if a response is necessary, do I necessarily need to respond? Is another way to think about it. You want to think about if your response to the situation is appropriate. What will happen if you do not respond? What will happen if you do not respond? Because you got to understand that just because a response may be necessary and your response could be appropriate, you don't necessarily need to respond. Okay? So when I say that, I'm saying, what will happen if you do not respond? Will the person do you think that the person, if you don't address it, that the pattern will repeat? All of those things. What is the potential consequence for my response? What is the potential consequence for my response? The fifth one, how does my actions now affect my future? How does my actions now affect my future? Okay. If you're in a customer facing business, word of mouth is everything, right? And all it takes is one bad interaction before people go and completely decimate you on Yelp or Google My Business or whatever place is necessary for you to get referrals and all of that stuff, right? So all of these things make goes into overall addressing confrontation in a way that will reduce um, the unnecessary conflicts, right? So you are considering the alternate, right? Um, so it's understandable that it may not be possible to think about all of the steps before every response. That's not the goal. The goal is really to get you to begin thinking about at least one or two of them. And then eventually you'll develop the muscle memory, and those thoughts will automatically come to you, making the process go a little faster. So the more you exercise that critical thinking muscle, that considering the alternate muscle, you develop it, it comes online quicker. You get to go through all of the decision making processes and you'll run through the questions really quickly. And that makes for the reduction of conflicts, unnecessary conflict. Okay. So as you consider the alternate, I want you to think about those five things and, you know, leave me a shout out. Okay. Comment, questions, whatever in the comments. Make sure you share this. Make sure you subscribe. Okay. Follow me. You can get all this content every single time that I release content. Right. Um, and so I'm just here. I'm empowered training and consultation. Dr. Shern signing out. See you next time.